I'm going to go over what we have done in class on writing an opinion essay so that if students are at home and would like to review, then they can do that. The first thing that we did was remember our 10 steps to an excellent essay. Our mnemonic is purple penguins find orange houses in blue tranquil coves everywhere. The first P reminds us that when we are writing, we need to first find the prompt and find what we're being asked to write about. Sometimes the prompt is not at the beginning, sometimes it comes at the end. So we don't want to just read and not know what we're reading for. So find the prompt first. Once we've read it, determine our purpose and organization. What are they asking us to write about? Are they asking us to compare things? Are they asking us to write about why something happens and problems it can cause? Or it might also be just causes and effects, and they label it that way. Are they asking us to just explain or inform how something occurs? Or today, are they asking us to write our opinion? Once we know our purpose, then we can decide, okay, I know how my Foursquare is going to be organized. Next, once I know my purpose and organization, I read the articles with certain things that I'm looking for in mind. If it's cause and effect, I might be underlining the causes and I might be starring the effects. If it's compare and contrast, I might be underlining things that are similar and I might be starring things that are different. And as we go through this, you will see what we're doing with the text evidence if we're looking to give our opinion. Finally, after we found our text evidence and read the articles, we start creating our organizer. And once that is complete, we begin writing our essay. We begin with the hook, and then we move from our hook into the bridge that will connect our hook to our thesis. And our thesis is the statement of what our essay is about. When I move to paragraph 2, I introduce my articles. When I am in paragraphs 3 and 4, I make sure that the points that I am making, I am backing up with text evidence. I don't want the whole paragraph to be just text evidence. I need to take some ideas and form them together to explain it in my own words, then back it up with text evidence, then make another point in my own words, and then back that up with text evidence. I need to have this checklist here so I can make sure that I have included transitions in paragraphs 2, 3, 4, and 5 in the conclusion. I need to make sure that my conclusion, and the best way to do that, we have said, is to restate the thesis in different words, to give just a little bit of a summary about what we've written, maybe an idea from paragraph 3 and 4, and then to leave off with a final thought. And when I'm finished, I need to make sure that I'm reading my essay back carefully so that I can edit. The next thing that we learned was that not everyone agrees with a statement. Sometimes we'll have a statement like school should start later, and we have termed that the proposition. And when someone makes a proposition, people can be in agreement or disagreement. And the terms we've given for that, if you're in agreement, you're on the affirmative side, and if you're in disagreement with that, then you are on the negative side. And we practiced by taking this proposition, school should start later, and students came up with ideas on the affirmative side in agreement with that, and on the negative side in disagreement with that. So we had some things. Most students don't get the 8.5 hours of sleep they need. Studies show that teens who get enough sleep are happier and healthier. Some students at schools that start later have better grades and attendance. Or on the negative side, later start times could mean less time for homework, school sports, or after-school jobs. A lot of adults have to wake up early for work. Students should get used to it. Parents who drive kids to school might be late for work. And some students do better earlier in the day. So the next thing that we looked at, understanding that people can have agreements and disagreements or view a subject two different ways. We talked about finding evidence. And when we are writing an essay for the state, then we will be given the articles to get our information from. But at other times that we might write to give our opinion, we might be researching some of that text evidence for ourselves. So once we have read the prompt and we know that we are asked to give our opinion, we know that our purpose is to persuade, and we know what our organization is going to be. The next important thing that we looked at was that a good opinion essay will consider the other side. So I have put down things that I agree with on the affirmative, or the other side if you disagreed on the negative side. But we also want to think not just about our own thoughts, but what the other side might argue. We've had a vocabulary term this year, rebuttal, and it's defined as an argument back. But there's also another word that means an opposing claim or an argument against one's claim, and that's a counterclaim. So in formal debate, those words will be used. So when you think of your side, think of an opposing views or counter arguments, and those can be called counterclaims. A rebuttal is also an argument back. When your opponent makes a counter argument, you might want to give a rebuttal to answer their counterclaim. So students are used to thinking about arguments and making their point, and they're used to as well someone disagreeing with their point. And when someone disagrees, they often answer that person back. So they're well practiced in part of this art of argument, but we are teaching them how to put that into writing. So here's an example. I might write, students should wear school uniform because it saves time picking out what to wear every day. And that would be a claim. Then the other side, if they do not agree with wearing school uniforms, they might make a counter argument or a counterclaim against a claim. For example, I might think that someone else who doesn't agree might argue, uniforms can be expensive. Not everyone could afford them. Then it would go back to the person who made this claim, and they'll have a chance to argue back, and we'll call that the rebuttal. So they might say buying 2 uniforms to wash and wear and go between is cheaper than buying a wardrobe full for a week. Most students like to wear a new outfit each day. 2 outfits would be cheaper than 5 for a school week. Now, as students get on into middle school and high school, they will be more specific about the nature of this claim and this counterclaim being very similar and going together. So you're arguing back very specifically on someone else's claim. However, at this time, we want students to just start thinking about making a claim and backing it up with why. And then we want them to start thinking about what the other side might argue as well and be prepared to defend their argument. So in class, we practiced with the proposition that you should make your bed every day. And students got to choose what side they were on that. And what they did was think of reasons and evidence for their own side. And then they spent just a minute to think, but what would my opponent say? And then we discussed some of those. So what we have taught students to do about finding text evidence was to, when they're reading, underline anything in the text that squares with their belief. So underline anything that matches their opinion. And put a star by anything that the other side might say. So they are starring these possible counterclaims for the other side. We practiced together with this text on Does Texting Ruin Your Grammar? And in class, as we read through, students were able to work together with us to say things that they would underline and star. We all took the affirmative side that texting does ruin your grammar just for practice in this circumstance. So, can't wait to see you today. The average teen spends about 60 text messages per day. To save space, many teens use slang like LOL, laughing out loud, BRB, be right back, or LATR later. Texts often contain incomplete sentences, misspelled words, and abbreviations like cuz instead of because. So students said to underline text often contain incomplete sentences and misspelled words. And they also had me underline the average teen sends about 60 text messages per day. The reason for this was that this gives evidence that when they're sending the text, the sentences are not complete. And they're also underlining this to say, and that matters because it's not just 1 or 2 texts they're sending, but 60 text messages per day. So at that number, it really could affect things. Some people worry that teens are ruining their grammar by spending so much time writing slang-filled texts. One study found that students did worse on grammar exams if they had just received a text. And 64% of teens say they use text speak in classroom writing assignments. So the students had me underline one study found that students did worse on grammar exams if they just received a text. And they're saying that if a study has been done, this could be evidence to back the point up that texting incorrectly can ruin your grammar. And then they had me underline that 64% of teens say that they use text speak in classroom writing assignments. So I might make a point that students, when they're writing an essay or they're writing formally in classroom, are still using this type of slang they used when they were texting on the phone, and this affects 64%. But others argue that people who write regularly have larger vocabularies, even if they are just writing text messages. Teen texters spend time thinking about how to express ideas in writing. That might actually improve their grammar. And other studies show that teens are able to easily switch back and forth between text slang and normal writing. So the students had me star this right here as a possible counterclaim for the other side, because what they're saying is, the opponents might argue, it does not ruin your grammar, because if you're writing, then you're writing. And the more that you write, then you will have opportunities to express your ideas and maybe increase your vocabulary. And they also had me star that the opponents will say it is easy to switch back and know the difference. Even though this point here is contradicting this point here, what we're doing right now is just collecting our text evidence. So as you can see, I've underlined things that square with my belief that texting ruins your grammar, and I have starred things that my opponent might say on the other side that texting does not ruin your grammar. So we've read our prompt and we know that we are going to be giving our opinion. We know our purpose is going to be to persuade, and we have found the text evidence. So the next step is to look at how we're going to organize our piece. And we are going to still use the 4 square. Now sometimes this box, the students might want to put it in the center, but it's the same idea. In the first paragraph, we're doing our hook and our opening and our thesis statement. In our second paragraph, we're doing our article summary. And now, in our third paragraph, how we're going to set it up for writing opinion is we're going to do some of our claims backed up with evidence. And then we're going to be putting possible counterclaims for the other side and giving a rebuttal so we get a chance to answer back in our writing. And then finally, we're going to conclude. What we also pointed out with students, and this will be good for them to remember, is that when I am getting ready to write my information in this box, these are some of the phrases that I might use in going into the other side's counterclaims. I might write, although I believe that texting does not or does ruin your grammar, some people state that texting does not. And then I would give one of the reasons, one of their counterclaims. Some other ideas are some people believe, people who disagree might point out. There are those that argue that. So when I see these, or when I read these, or write them, I know that I'm about to get another view or another side. So what we did as practice together was we took an article about students getting trophies. And we took the stance, everyone should not get a trophy. So that was the proposition. Everyone should not get a trophy. And we were on the affirmative side of that. So we took this text, and as we read it, we underlined things that went with what we thought. So, for example, we underlined on the floor is even a bronze-colored football trophy which Lucas uses to keep his door from slamming shut. And the students chose to underline that because this points out that if a trophy is being used as a doorstop, it obviously doesn't hold that much meaning for him anymore. We underlined things like Lucas got his trophies for simply showing up to practice in games, because students wanted to use that as possible evidence that the trophies were not received for any large effort. The things that we starred as possible counterclaims for the other side were then coaches often openly favored star athletes. Less gifted players would spend entire games sitting on the bench. Today, rules in many leagues require equal playing time for all members, and the focus isn't on winning, says Kaufman. It's about building skills. So the students wanted to star those because they said if the focus is on everyone getting a trophy and sort of equal time, then it becomes not about just the best winning, but it becomes about building skills. And then we continued to read this article, and starred information such as getting trophies can encourage young athletes to continue playing even if they are not superstars. So the other side who does not agree with us, the side that thinks everyone should get a trophy, is going to say that it's an encouragement. If everyone feels encouraged, they're going to stick with it, and then this could lead to being more fit and to making better grades. Then we go back to underlining some things in support for our side, which is in life, most people are not rewarded for simply doing what's required. And trophies can lose their meaning when everyone gets one. And trophies are not an effective way for coaches to motivate players. And then we go back again to too many trophies, they lose their meaning, and he says he's out of space. So after we got that information, then we put it into our organizer. So again, this is the article we read, this is the author, and we're going to summarize it. And some of my claims, in my own words, that I want to point out is that not everyone should get a trophy because it sends the wrong message. And then I'm going to just bullet point my text evidence. Then I want to say, in my own words, that it's a waste of money, and I'm going to bullet point that text evidence. And I also want to say, in my own words, trophies aren't as special. And I'm going to use text evidence that their meaning gets lost. As I move down to here, I'm putting counter arguments or counterclaims that the other side might say. So people who disagree with me are going to say that everyone getting a trophy can encourage athletes. But I want to jot down an argument back to their counterclaim. So that's my rebuttal. It's not effective motivation. My opponent also might say that if everyone gets a trophy, the focus is on building skills. That's their counterclaim. And then I am going to say, but they can still build skills and not give everyone a trophy. Once I have my organizer complete, and again, I'm bullet pointing, I'm not going to write my conclusion or my opening actually in here. I did it on the next part just for an example, but students will just do this to bullet point so they know how their flow is going to go. But when it comes to writing their opening and their conclusion, they'll actually be typing that in or writing it on the paper. We stopped and mentioned again how important the hook is, and you can look here for possible hooks. So one hook I decided to put on here was in thinking of what does this make me think of? And it made me think of the story of the little red hen. And in the little red hen, she does all of the work, but then every other animal in the barnyard expects also to get a reward, or they expect to get a trophy. So I started this off, did all the characters get to eat bread in the little red hen? No. The hen did most of the work, so she got the reward. That is my hook. Now I have to think about how am I going to bridge that hook, because that little red hen is so far off from me writing about my opinion on everyone getting a trophy. So I bridge that idea together. However, today, many learn that even the lazy characters should have gotten a prize. And then I'm going to follow my bridge up with my thesis statement, and that's going to be my opinion. And you will see that when we move into what the final essay would look like. So this is the final piece all come together where I'm using my organizer to build my essay. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs, and we have read the first part here, but here's the thesis. I do not think that everyone should get a trophy. I think it should be reserved for the very best or the athletes with the most effort. And then I move down into my second paragraph, and I only have one article that I used. So this article summary is going to be fairly short. But later when I use more than one article, then my article summary is going to be longer. Then I move down to my third paragraph, where this is where I am really telling my claims, and I cannot just say my thought on something, but I need to back it up with reasons, or I need to back it up with text evidence. So here's the example. After reading this article, I think that it backs up some of my ideas on the matter. In life, we do not get rewarded for just showing up. So that's the thought in my own words, and now I back it up. As Tarshis pointed out, a student does not get an A for just going to class. Jobs also pay more for those that have to go to university longer or those that put in the most time. And that is, again, one of my reasons that I'm putting in there. Also, students who work very hard are proud of their A's. It would not mean the same if everyone was given an A just for walking in a room. And then I want to back this up with text evidence. Dr. Michelle Anthony from the article stated that trophies can lose their meaning when everyone gets one. Additionally, think about how much trophies cost and how much money is wasted. So again, that's my point. And then I want to back that up with text evidence. When trophies are given out for anything, they do not mean as much and become doorstops, like Lucas's football trophy, as mentioned in the article. And so here, as you can see, there's a balance of me giving my ideas and backing that up with text evidence. And then I want to move into my fourth paragraph. And now I'm going to be saying some of the counterclaims for the other side. And then I'm going to argue those back in my writing. So my transition is, although I think that trophies for all sends the wrong message, some might say that this trend is a good thing. So here you see that some might say, and that's a clue that I'm moving into what my opponent might think. Coach Karen Coffin stated that when everyone gets a trophy, the focus is not about winning, but rather building skills. The article also informed that getting trophies can encourage young athletes to continue playing. However, this however signifies that I'm about to argue with my opponent's counterclaim. So my rebuttal is, I think that skill building can still be a focus without giving everyone a trophy. In addition, it was pointed out that when coaches show appreciation, that is what keeps athletes coming back. When one gets so many trophies, it does not seem as motivating anymore. So then I move into my conclusion, where I am restating my thesis. In conclusion, I believe that showing up is not good enough. So again, then I'm saying that I don't think everyone should get a trophy. And then I am finishing it up by hooking it a little back up to my opening again. The special accolades should be reserved for special things. There should be a reason and hard work behind getting the reward. The little red hen deserved her trophy bread. She worked hard to make it. If that was not the case, how would the other barnyard friends ever learn the correct message? So again, I'm leaving off with thoughts on my side. So I hope that helps. You can go back through any part of this little tutorial and pause it and slow it down to read things or review things, and then let me know if you have any questions.